Okay, Mr. Chair, you can go ahead. We need one more, I believe, for a quorum, but we can workshop until then. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for assisting. Let's call the meeting to order. I recognize that we do not have sufficient of members for a quorum, but we're going to try to move through the agenda without adopting any voting items that we may need to later on. So with that being said, we don't need to introduce each other. We all have a pretty good grasp of all the members. I'd like to acknowledge the folks that are watching and participating. We thank you for.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I do see some new names I've not seen before. They may be new to either the audience or to GJJ. So I do think, at least for now, it'd be in order for us to just introduce ourselves, if I may suggest.
All righty then. That's a good suggestion. So let's follow through with that. I will introduce myself. My name is Gordon Weeks. I'm the public defender. I am representing the public defender's office, and I am the co-chair of the CAB. I am filling in as the chair for this meeting. Our chair is excused for this meeting, and she will be back for the next meeting. Next, introductions.
Marcia Ellison. I serve as secretary of this CAB, and I am president of NAACP Fort Little Broward branch.
Assistant Chief Victor London, Fort Lauderdale Police Department.
Gloria Moschella, Chief of the Youth Justice Unit for the State Attorney's Office.
Tevis Bush, Chief Probation Officer for Juvenile Probation Circuit 17.
Mr. John James.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. John James, Chief of the Juvenile Division here at the Public Defender's Office.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for introducing yourself so our public will be aware of the members.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I
ma'am.
didn't hear the judge and I didn't hear Mr. Walters. I don't know if they were speaking.
Judge?
Carlos Rabola, Circuit Court Judge in the Juvenile Delinquency Division.
Mr. Walters? If you can unmute yourself, Mr. Walters.
And now that's better.
Yes, sir.
Roosevelt Walters, and I'm just pleased to know all of you.
Thank you very kindly for being present. All righty, so do we have enough for a quorum, Madam Secretary? All righty, let's move along with the agenda as presented. I am going to defer on the chair's report until our chair is back with us at the next meeting. I am going to skip the report from the Alternative Prevention Work Group, who is helmed by Mr. Obel. And I'm going to move on to the School Disciplinary Committee report that is oftentimes presented by our secretary, Madam President with the NAACP. I'm going to also ask Ms. Michelle and myself to give some feedback on that presentation since we also participate in those processes. Madam Secretary.
I'll be very brief. The last meeting that was promised, even though you're not supposed to say promise anymore, happened, I guess, it's been a minute. I know I did send them the new statutes that I think will affect the way they discipline our children going forward, and for their review prior to moving forward. It does speak to any pre-arrest program, and I know that there was a very strong effort to eliminate any second chances for children in the state and certainly in Broward County schools. They have some weekly school-based disciplinary meetings where they use for the that they're using now that I have not, matter of fact, they have a meeting today. They seem to put them on Wednesday that they know we're not going to be available, but I did make sure that both, even prior to its passing, the House version and the Senate version, that will strongly affect our education, the way we discipline children goes to them. They're having their people review, and we are, I could tell you it's going to be strongly affected as far as that goes. And we may have to even go further back to the drawing board. I did see some comments on social media where one of the members of our community is still blaming Promise for Douglas. That's how she started out. So it means there's still a lot of people who don't have a clue as it goes to there. So I think we're still at the beginning stages, and we may be taking a couple of steps back with this new Senate bill that came out of nowhere, moved very swiftly, very strategic on that. So that's all I have for now with the school discipline meetings.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And I concur with you on your presentation. I'd also like to add, just locally, the school board is meeting, trying to address the Promise program and any further or future iterations of that program. I believe the last stage of those meetings have been on trying to find a proper name or title for a similar type program or an iteration of Promise. And they're workshopping a few names and then going to start working on the process after those names have been decided on. Ms. Michelle, do you have anything else to add? Because you also participate in a number of those meetings.
Were you able to attend last week's meeting, Mr. Weeks? So I was not there because I was out of town or going out of town, but my colleague, Mr. Moliere, was there, and he did report to me that at that meeting, while they have not chosen a name, that's still up in the air, they did present some of the data that we were requesting regarding across the county, where we're seeing what types of charges out of which schools and that sort of thing. So it sounded like they put together the data that will be useful to us going forward. So they did start that process. Other than that, it didn't sound like we missed anything in terms of crucial decision-making or discussion. Probably the next meeting will be more robust because they have the data out there, which I did ask him to send to me. I'll have to remind him I'd like to see it before the meeting. We probably should ask Dr. Hepburn to send it out if they haven't already.
Agreed. And if we can forward that data over to Madam Secretary to probably share with some of the members of the board.
Jody Washington is the contact person for them. She sends me the updates after every meeting. I do have it. If you want to see it, I can forward it over to you, but Jody is the person that you would need to contact.
If you could just forward it to me, Mr. James, I appreciate that.
Got you.
All righty. Do we
Yes,
have?
well, because it sounds like I should have gotten it, but I did not. I don't have anything from Jody yet again. I thought we cured that problem, but apparently not.
I know there have been some difficulties with them making sure that all of the participants and the members and the stakeholders are getting invites and information about meetings. Let's hope as we move further along in this, they tighten up that aspect of it, because we should all be getting the same amount of information every single time. But let's just hope the school system and the school board gets that a little bit tighter moving forward. Anything else? Any other members have any comment or input on this issue?
Here.
I heard a yes. Who was the yes from?
Here.
Is that Mr. Walters?
Yes.
All righty, Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
I'm just wondering what is to be accomplished with a name change.
Well, my understanding is it's not simply a name change, it's an entire review of the Promise program and determining what a future program would look like. The first issue that they thought was wise to address was whatever program would materialize, what would that be called? Would it be called promise, or would it be called something new? And that's why the emphasis was on first creating a mission statement. There was a lot of time put into a mission statement. And then the second level of work was put into branding the work moving forward. And that's where the name came in. There hasn't really been a significant amount of work done on what a program will look like, because like we've done in the past, we always said we want to be data driven. So we said we need some data in order to guide the conversation and or identifying the problems so we could offer solutions. So we are at that stage where we've identified, where we've requested certain pieces of information be presented to those people that are on that committee, so we can then offer feedback as they develop a program to address those minor instances that occur in school. That is my understanding, Mr. Walters.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. It doesn't sound like the problem is the name change. The problem is the program that they don't want to have any part of. Thank you.
It's a lot of work herding cats. So with that being said, and hearing no other feedback from anyone, I'm going to move on to a report from our data work group. Ms. Michella and Mr. James, he was just on the line, he just dropped off.
I still see Mr. James. He's here.
Mr. James,
I'm still here.
give us a report from the work group that you guys have been reviewing data on.
Yeah, so the group we haven't had a chance to officially meet in quite some time now. However, there was some additional data that was provided. I think we had directives that we left off with in our last meeting, that was, I believe, was back in October, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Gaynor presented to the board what our findings were and the different directives that the group had recommended. However, I think recently there was some more additional data that was shared from looking at the youth arrest and dispositions in the last, was it over the last 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bush, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the last 5 years. I know it was since 2018 to present date. So we look at that. We're still looking through that data, I'm still going through it personally, but I must say that I don't want to take the credit for it. However, Circuit 17 is to me, looks better than a lot of other jurisdictions across the state in how we are handling juvenile related arrests and offenses and how those cases are getting processed and completed. But our directives have already been established, and I think we're meeting those objectives.
Ms. Michella, do you have anything to add?
No, I do not. We could certainly set down another meeting if we're ready to. I don't have a problem with that. I think that DJJ was spearheading the management of the meeting times. We probably could do that. The holidays had kind of hit us right after that meeting. I think that's kind of why we're a little bit behind right now. But yes, I agree with Mr. James. They did provide everything we wanted to look at, and there's plenty to go through.
And just for a side note too, just to back up that, one of the things that we discussed is that we were going to start speaking with the chiefs regarding how those law enforcement agencies are handling civil citations. That was one of the things that we were looking to do. I know Mr. Bush in his last email regarding missed opportunities provided us with either the MOUs or the policies and procedures for Coconut Creek and Coral Springs and how they were handling a civil citation. So you can see what their direction is and how some of those cases are continuously to be they have high numbers in the missed opportunities. I think even in the report that he sent regarding it, and I know I'm kind of jumping the gun, but that was one of the directives there that we were dealing with the data group. So we're still looking at that. The other thing is that from the data group perspective, we were waiting for Broward County Schools to implement their new program to start.
Right.
how the impact of not having a promise or promise related program would affect arrests going forward in school arrests going forward. So we're at a standstill right now, but we're at a standstill because we're waiting to see if we can affect some other things. So that's what we are.
How much time do you guys think you're going to need in order to be able to give us a further report and give us some guidance?
So the thing is now is which direction do you guys want to go? Now that I don't know if you had a chance to look at the information that was sent by Mr. Bush regarding the procedures of the different law enforcement agencies, primarily Coral Springs and Coconut Creek. One of the directives was that we were going to have one of these nice board members to go over and have a conversation with those chiefs. However,
Well, let me pause right there, and I apologize for interrupting, but I just want to go back to the data without going into a great bit of detail, because all of this stuff is available on the DJJ website through their delinquency profile. And you mentioned and you start off and you alluded to that Broward County was doing relatively well in comparison to the other circuits when it comes to how children were being processed through the system.
correct.
I want to give some metrics on to what reasonably well means in respect to our colleague and our sister circuits. DJJ breaks down through their dashboard information based on diversion, probation, program commitment, and direct files. And after I reviewed it, it seemed to suggest that Broward County was having the vast majority of the youth receiving some form of diversion that was going to address those minor instances that caused them to come into contact with our system. And the trajectory since 2018 has been in a downward trajectory when it comes to probation and program commitments in Broward County, suggesting that there is a reduction in the level of crime that juveniles are engaging in that's causing them to be committed. Is that your assessment, Mr. James?
It is. That is my assessment. And I can tell you another number that I looked at that jumped off the board to me. And I don't know that I'm looking at this correctly. However, I don't want to kill my own steam, and I'm going to say that I am. When I look at the overall number of arrests and I look at that intake number, and that number is in the 2000s, and then I start piecing it down to the diversion numbers, I start piecing it down to the probation numbers, I start piecing it down to the residential commitment number, and then to the number regarding adult transfers, which is the cases that are direct file. That is telling me, what those numbers are telling me is that a large majority of our cases are either being stern judicial warnings, no petitions, or we're going to trial, and those trials are becoming successful because we have a number of cases where the kids were arrested, but there was no probation to follow. There was no diversion to follow. So that's another way that I look at the numbers as well, that says the work that's being done by our office and the private bar, and also the state attorney's office, and understanding which cases that probably don't need to be prosecuted and dismissing those cases. So I'm looking at that number as well.
Ms. Michelle, have you had an opportunity to review that data as well? Do you have a different interpretation of the data?
I haven't had an opportunity, but I do believe in perspective. So I find it interesting, Mr. James's perspective. Probably I would look at the data and suggest that the state attorney's office comes first and then you all come second. But I'll look at the data and get back with you on that, Mr. Weeks. I'll reserve.
That's why I asked you for your take, because I heard
Right.
Mrs. take. So your state attorney's take on the data.
Yeah.
Mr. Bush, have you had an opportunity to review the data? Because you sent it.
Yes, I did, and I believe Mr. James is correct. Especially, I know since the pandemic, a lot of numbers went down, but even after the pandemic, you can still see a decline in the numbers. So which I think is good. And I want to also add that me receiving those policies from Coral Springs and Coconut Creek, it was just an opportunity at the time, because Coconut Creek brought in about 5 kids to our jack for battery, and I was, I got on the phone with their sergeant, and tried to find out the reason why they're not offering these kids civil citation. And he said it's according to their policy. So he put me in contact with their legal advisor, who was graciously able to give me a copy of the of the policy. So after reviewing it, I did see that battery was one of the non-qualifying charges for civil citation. I reached out to her and she said, it's only those kids who they have gang fights. So if you have one kid being jumped by 5 or 6 kids, they're not going to give a civil citation for that. And I can kind of understand that, because I think that could easily be flipped later on if the state attorney gets a hold of that PC, and it could turn into something different. So, but there was one charge on there that was brought to my attention. Loitering and prowling was not a qualifying offense. So I reached back out to her again with that, and she agreed. And just with some conversation with their chief, they end up changing their policy and making that a qualifying offense for a civil citation. So I think it's just a matter of us just having that conversation with them, seeing where they are, and what kind of strongholds they may have on their end, for us to probably go in to understand better and possibly help maybe even change some of their policies.
Well, I appreciate you having that conversation, but I'm also going to ask the data work group, particularly Ms. Mishala, to just monitor that. Now that we have a frame of reference from March, that which department is it? Coral Springs? Mr. Bush, was it Coral Springs?
For which one? For
the loitering and prowling.
no, that was Coconut Creek.
Coconut Creek. So now we have a frame of reference that, as of March of 2024, we should be looking at all of those LMPs that come out of Coconut Creek to see whether they would have otherwise qualified for civil citation, because of the conversation that Mr. Bush has had and made the representation that they made to him. But we as system and stakeholders have to also look at the data that comes in here, because one thing to have these, we recognize that systems are put in place with policies and procedures, but people actually make things happen and do things, and they don't always follow policy and procedures. All of our agencies have rules, but then people do what they're going to do. So the representation is that is going to be altered, but let's make sure that it's actually altered through actions as opposed to just having conversations about it. So Ms. Michelle and Mr. James, keep a steady eye open, particularly for LMPs that are coming out of Coconut Creek, because every child that's offered a civil citation is an opportunity for that child to not have contact with our system and also get the proper support that they need. And we have to encourage agencies to do that. So I appreciate you, Mr. Bush. And I appreciate Ms. Michelle and Mr. James for following up with this data group. But Ms. Michelle, please take a look at that data and give us your interpretation of the data. We've heard from DJJ's interpretation through Mr. Bush and the PD's interpretation. We'd like to hear from the state, right? Mr. Judge Robolo, I know anecdotally, you may see trends in your courtrooms. Are you also, without putting you in a spot as to whether you review the data, but are you seeing a reduction in those types of offenses or numbers in your courtroom based on the representation of Mr. James and Mr. Bush?
I haven't seen the data, but there definitely has been a change in regards to the state attorney's office allowing a lot more juveniles into diversion programs. And that might cut into what Mr. James and Ms. Marshalla were talking about. That'll reduce a lot of probation and commitments. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. It's really changed a lot. So, and as Mr. James knows, because we had an interesting case where he just got involved in it, and then we came to find out that the case law was on the side of the state. The state attorney's office is quick to ask for a waiver of speedy if they're going to allow you in a diversion program, which is fine. The manner they were doing it was in the not the detention center, the JAC, the administrative center, and that's not so fine, but Mr. James and I, and I forget who the prosecutor was, found a case that said that it was okay for the state to do that, notwithstanding the fact that the juvenile didn't have a lawyer present at the time, which is fine, because at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is allow more opportunities for diversion, things that we had never seen in the past, charges that we had never seen in the past. They're now allowed diversion, and sometimes even a second charge. A juvenile with two cases will be allowed diversion, and all of that, in my humble opinion, has been for the good of the juveniles of Broward County. And I commend your office, Mr. Weeks, and Ms. Marshalla's office, Mr. Pryor's office, for working together on that.
Judge, I really appreciate your comments, your insight, but more importantly, recognizing that it is for the good of Broward County. And I emphasize that not for the stakeholders that are on this call, because we know why we're doing this work, but for the attendees that are watching this and may not have the proper context of why it's important to support children, and to make sure that they're held accountable through diversion, make sure they're held accountable through civil citation, but also make sure they don't go deeper and deeper into our juvenile justice system. So, and I appreciate that feedback. Keep up the good work, Ms. Mashala, on those diversion programs. And let's do not rest on our laurels, because we think we're moving in one positive direction and we take the foot off the gas. We have to stay vigilant on this issue, and constantly be watching these numbers. So I appreciate you all on that. Any feedback from any other members?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Roosevelt, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm just listening at everyone, and I want to make sure that the decrease in numbers are not due to the lack of enforcement, and you know, our children getting that much better. The law enforcement bodies is just saying, instead of giving civil citation, say the hell with them, let them go.
Well, one of the things that we have been watching, Mr. Roosevelt, is exactly that issue. If they use other techniques other than civil citation, i.e. arresting children, we would see that those numbers increase. And I do not think the data suggests that there has been a increase of over enforcement trying to arrest more children to pick up for the children that may be getting civil citation or diversion. I can't speak on law enforcement as to whether they're just letting them go, but based on history, I don't think that has ever happened. And I'm not just saying that facetiously. It's just a reality. I don't think the vast majority of law enforcement officers in the nation will consider that just letting people go is an alternative to enforcement. But I'll defer to our executives, Colonel Holmes or Assistant Chief London.
Hello, everyone.
Well, I
Oh,
think
sorry.
those two particular enforcement bodies would not be the one that I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with the Coconut Creeks and the Coral Springs, and I'm not so much concerned with the overall letting them go as I am who particularly are they letting go.
I see the point that you're making. I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Colonel Holmes.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for actually getting on late. I was having technical issues with my new computer and linking on. But just to add to what Mr. Bush stated, advised about Coconut Creek, one of the things I would suggest is just make sure that you follow up with the command staff to make sure that it's trickling down to the frontline troops. You have to have consistent buy-in from the top down to the bottom, from the bottom up to the top. And we've been dealing, as a board, we've been dealing with the same agencies for quite some time. and it's evident that, you know, they're really not adhering to what we're requesting. However, with that being said, I would definitely don't just sit back and I guess listen what they have to say. Look for results, and it starts with the command. No doubt about it, command. I know President Ellison. You know, when she inquired with me, she wants results. You know, not just hearsay. And that's one of the things that, you know, in our profession, and Assistant Chief London can attest to this. Yes, we have a lot going on, but when it boils down to the simplest things with adhering to you know, what command is advising and the requirements and protocols and policy and procedures, there's really no excuse for the frontline troops not following it. There's a breakdown in the command structure. And so we really have to pay attention to that. And I was just suggesting, Mr. Bush, because we've been dealing with the same two agencies for quite some time now, and we haven't seen a change. That's my 2 cents,
Chief London,
Mr. Chair.
Chief London, do you have any input on whether law enforcement just may be letting some kids go, or a particular population of children being let go? Lack of enforcement.
Anecdotally, I can say that could be happening. And also it could be a practice. I know back under Chief Adderley, we subscribed to counseling the kids and releasing them if it wasn't something egregious. So it could be a philosophy of the command that's involved.
All righty. So without belaboring this issue over and over again, I'm going to ask the data group to get back together before our next meeting, so you can carefully parse this data and give us a report on the trends that you're seeing, any solution that you may be offered to any negative trends that you are seeing. All right. So let's move on to, is Ms. Gaynor available for our, I don't see her on the other line.
I think there's a hand up, Rodriguez. She may be giving the report, Leslie Rodriguez. So hang on 1 second, let me bring her over. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, are you reporting for Ms. Gaynor?
Okay, hi, this is me. I'm off-site, so I had to have Leslie to send me over her link.
Okay. Ms.
Yeah.
Gaynor, thank you for joining us. You're appearing as Leslie Rodriguez on the screen, but is it back Ms. Gaynor? Because we can recognize her voice, and I'm doing a voice identification of her. You're going to be reporting to us on civil citation and missed opportunities. She has distributed to all of the members the report, so you can review it as she goes through it for a presentation.
Okay, so there were 51 youth referred to civil citation for the month of February, and 27 completed successful. So that was an 87% success rate. For the missed, I'll move on to the missed opportunities unless there's questions about the referrals for civil citation.
I have any questions from the stakeholders? No other questions? You can move on to missed opportunities.
Okay, absolutely. So for the month of February, there were a total of 29 missed opportunities. However, 13 were not eligible due to our circuit program. All 13 were domestic violence related. So that left us with 16 true missed opportunities.
16, that's a very high number. One of the highest numbers I've ever heard on this call.
Yes.
Can we
So-
tell us which agencies are involved in that 16?
We had 8 from Coconut Creek, 3
8
from
from
Coral.
let's go slowly. We don't have to rush. 8 from Coconut Creek.
And there it is.
And where else do we have? So half of those came from Coconut Creek, one jurisdiction.
We had 3 from Coral Springs,
3 from Coral Springs. Okay.
1 from Davie,
1 from Davie. That's new.
1 from Fort Lauderdale,
Okay, Chief London. We'll give you
and
a chance. We'll give you a chance, Chief London. We'll give you a chance. Go ahead.
and 3 from Sunrise.
Sunrise.
0 from BSO.
0 from
0.
Okay, so Sunrise is new. We don't see that.
They're not new.
Well,
Remember, there's a leadership change as well.
yes. And
And
Davie,
I would,
we don't oftentimes see Davie. So we have 1 from Davie. And
Well, let's see who's leading Davie. Who's the chief over there? Let's get for real now.
and we
Top
have
down
all,
organization, Mr. Chair. Top down.
I know, we got an all-time high from Coconut Creek of 8, which is a very, very high number. It's half of the entire total of 16. But since we have a representative for Fort Lauderdale, let's talk to Chief London about the one who he claims is actually a 0. So let's hear some feedback on it.
Well, this is the benefit of having the report sent out in advance so a review can be done. And it's actually Coconut Creek that had the missed opportunity, not Fort Lauderdale.
Oh my.
So they
That
actually have 4 as opposed to 3. You know what? This is important for us to do. And this exercise, I know for us on this call that do this every month may seem, repetitive, but it's incredibly important for us to do as a transparent body and for the community to recognize where we're having difficulty for folks to embrace the civil citation program for the entirety of Broward County. Children throughout this county need to be treated the same, no matter where they live. If you engage in certain conduct in the north side of the county, you should be also treated the same way if it occurs in the west side or the north side or the east side of the county. There shouldn't be disparities in outcomes based on where you live. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to the board because I know there's some feedback, some suggestions that you may want to offer with respect to this high number of missed opportunities. I don't think we've ever had this high number in the last year, at least to my recollection.
Is there any more information that Ms. Gaynor can provide with those Coconut Creek missed opportunities, Mr. Chair?
yes, what I can say is that all of the missed opportunities are not all, 13 of the missed opportunities, which includes all of the Coconut Creek offenses, are for battery, and the other 3 are for trespassing, and those 3 were from Sunrise.
Can I ask you, Ms. Gaynor, do they all occur on the same day?
Let me check that for you.
And what are they all of, could you give us their race and their genders? And I know that's asking for a lot in a very short period of time,
Okay.
because I'm just trying to clarify whether this was like an incident that may have occurred at a basketball court and they responded and a bunch of children were contacted all at once, or was this 13 separate incidents throughout the city?
Right, so there were 2 that occurred on February 15th. There were 4 that occurred on February 2nd. And then there were 2 that occurred on February 1st.
So 2 of them occurred on the 14th?
The 15th.
The 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. Interesting. So I'm going to open it up now to any other feedback. And thank you for that question, Madam Secretary. Gave some insight.
Mr. Chair, I was wondering if any of them are school-based? If you can tell.
Yes, so of the 16 missed opportunities, there were 10 which were school-based and 6 which were community-based.
The district is at it. And let me just say that there was recently, I was able to meet with some district staff who had an opportunity to meet, or have a conversation in passing at one of the meetings, the chief's meeting. And the chief's only question was, I heard y'all starting up that promise thing again. Definitely anti. And as far as Sunrise, if they get, for a lot of those leftovers, you can look for those numbers for that assistant chief position or deputy chief or whatever they're calling it. You can look for numbers to continue to rise there as well. I did hear that Creek's chief may be having possibly some job security issues. So I think Mr. Bush hit him at the right time, and perhaps it might be a time for Ms. Michella's office to double back on those different pieces.
Any other feedback?
I didn't have an opportunity to take the deep dive into the most recent February one that Chief Bush sent out on Monday. Normally I would try to do that. I did last month or the month before, but my cursory look at a couple of the cases that I did open up when I saw the number of cases from those two main agencies, the quick look when I randomly looked up a couple of those cases is that they are batteries with multiple youth on one victim. So I wouldn't jump to any conclusions, because I am finding that when we are seeing that they're not issuing the civil citation on battery charges, that they're using their discretion because it's either a pretty bad beatdown. Some of these batteries are not, I slapped you in the face or I punched you. I'm talking about a beatdown. And very often they are recorded on a telephone, on a phone rather, a cell phone, and they are offensive to watch. And if it's not that, it's multiple kids on one kid. So before we jump to judgment, we would really have to take a deep dive into each one of them, which I will do before the next meeting. But that's usually them using their discretion, and I don't disagree necessarily with the reasons why they may not have issued it. And then there are times where it may be that the victim did not want them to issue a civil citation, although they're not supposed to be able to say that a civil citation is not issued, but those batteries are usually fairly serious circumstances.
Ms. Gaynor, your system for entering the reason for refusing the offering of civil citation, shouldn't it capture why the officers refused or did not offer the civil citation?
If I may offer a little correction, when the information is entered into the system because the youth has not been issued a civil citation, that's the Department of Juvenile Justice, or their staff or their contractors who are entering. But yes, there is a space which allows to share why the youth was not offered a civil citation.
Do you have any notations for these 16 in those comments section?
If you give me a moment, I will get that for you.
And the reason I'm asking this, and I know the members are well aware of it, is because we've tried to encourage the law enforcement agencies to issue civil citations, and in that encouragement process, if they don't issue a civil citation, to then explain so we can have a better data set as to why it wasn't issued. So we can be able to see anomalies and then address or put some attention to the issues that we see. So Ms. Gaynor, have they given any comments as to why they didn't issue them?
Okay, I have it here. Um, There are a couple of them that that say ineligible offense type. And again, that's one of the discussions we had on the last report, because that option is being selected when it's an exclusion, not from the circuits plan, but from the law enforcement agency plan. So we see a number of those that say ineligible because of the offense type, and those were batteries.
So just for our education, they have a drop-down menu for selection of reasons for refusal. They don't get to write it in themselves.
That's correct. There's a drop down in the Juvenile Justice Information System, which is statewide.
Okay. So, any other feedback or input from any of the other board members?
Mr. Chair, I look forward to the information, because if you follow every year with Coconut Creek, they have led the state, as we all know, in school-based arrests in particular. And so even, as I said, DOJ has been concerned over the years with that. So I look forward to clarity on the data, but I think they will be as we've always known them to be.
Madam Secretary, I agree with you and I concur, and I'm going to offer this as a possible solution. Ms. Michelle, if you could, you indicated you were going to do a deep dive into those 16 civil citations. Ms. Gaynor, could you also assist? We ordinarily don't go back and deep dive into every civil citation, but this is an anomaly. We've never seen this many in a reporting cycle. Could we also look at, is there some suggestions that we can make to the department to better clarify the selection items that they can select on that drop-down menu to give us some more clarity, so we don't have to go back and do these deep dives every time a civil citation is not issued? Because 16 is a lot, but if it's 16 because there were 16 multiple fights, or there were, those types of things, then that could guide our discussion. Ms. Gaynor, are you going to be able to give us a report next time on the civil citations?
I think I can assist for the information I get. So if it was a civil citation, I have all the information. But if it's something that is outside of civil citation, meaning it actually went into on the delinquency side, I only have the information that's shared with me.
Ms. Michelle, are you going to be able to assist?
The drop down part is, I believe, with DJJ. So that's not something, I think even if we wanted to change it, it wouldn't just be changed for Coconut Creek's purposes. It would have to be changed overall. Because again, like until I take the deeper dive, the explanation sometimes is not just from the facts of the case, but sometimes the officer will write an explanation in a probable cause affidavit as to why they didn't issue the civil citation. I thought, like you did, Mr. Weeks, that they were just able to write that out for this purpose of this report. I didn't realize it was a whole drop-down menu selection type thing. So we might have to have a whole discussion on that in a different meeting with more people that can control that than I can, or even obviously Ms. Gaynor's agency.
The longer we do this, the more we learn about the system and the issues that can occur in the system.
Agreed.
Mr. Holmes, Colonel Holmes, I saw your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry if you hear some noise in the background. They're doing construction in our building. However, what we do is we have our deputies put in their narrative of the event report as to why they did not issue a civil citation. So we have that for monitoring purposes at our command levels, from the district chief all the way up to my level. So
that's a policy that your agency has put in place.
Yes.
We appreciate. Colonel London, you have a similar policy?
You're muted, sir.
Yes, we have the same policy.
Ms. Gaynor, your hand is up.
It is. I just one of the recommendations from our data group was that we, as a circuit, the stakeholders who have the authority to make those decisions, that we look at that drop down and that we create a circuit a circuit plan for how we utilize it, because obviously JJIS is a statewide system. DJJ is not just going to change it for Broward County, but if we look at the drop down and we define it according to our circuit plan and what we want it to be, then we can have the individuals responsible for entering it here do those drop downs according to what we've identified as our definitions according to our circuit plan.
I agree, and you did remind me that we are convening the circuits civil citation group to do that exact thing. For those members that are part of that, you'll be getting an email shortly for us to go through and look at the plan and make any additional revisions. So Ms. Gaynor, please keep those notes nice and tight for that meeting so we can have some guides on all the things that we discussed to try to improve the plan. I appreciate you for having a great memory.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Walters?
Thank you, sir. I had my hand up a long time, but you did.
I apologize. I apologize, Mr. Walters.
Let me say that I like the feedback or the forward looking as to what we can do as a board or committee in order to change some of the stuff. But I want Ms. Michelle to know that I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I'm concerned about certain law enforcement folks being given additional reasons to not or to allow for additional non-compliance. And when you and Madam Secretary, Ms. President, to work with that school board to make sure that that school board doesn't further enhance these particular law enforcement ability to ignore.
I appreciate that feedback, and I too concur, and that's exactly why we're going through this exercise, and hopefully we'll be able to have enough folks in very different areas that we'll see these things that before they manifest, so we can try to get ahead of them. Any other feedback from any of the board members on civil citation and any other suggestions on how to move forward with this very, very high number that we received in this reporting cycle? So I'm going to take from the feedback that we got thus far that we're going to reconvene that civil citation work group. I know that there has already been trying to get everybody scheduled together so we can all be in one spot to talk about that and make some revisions and move forward. With that being said, we're going to move on to our legislative highlights.
Mr. Chair,
Sir, yes, sir.
I have to go to the Housing Authority Commission meeting. Can I do my report real quick?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Chair, can we now have quorum, so can we do an approval and then go to, it'll only take a second to do that.
Now that we have a quorum, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? Since we've all had an opportunity to review them.
So move. I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
We have a motion from Mr. Obel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Ellison. Hearing a first and a second. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing no opposition to the motion, let's all in the affirmative raise your hand if you are in support. Seeing that it's in support of the majority, the motion is adopted and moved. Let's also, am I hearing a motion on today's agenda?
Mr. Chair, move approval of today's agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Having a first and a second. Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition with a raise of the hands in support of the motion. Seeing the motion supported in support, the motion passes. We are moving forward on the agenda. Any other items to be adopted, Madam Secretary?
No, sir.
Thank you very kindly. So let's move over to Mr. Obel. We're going to move back on the agenda and have a report from the Alternative Prevention Work Group. Mr. Obel, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to report that we had a meeting, myself, Colonel Holmes, our chair, former Judge Holmes, and a few other deputies. We missed you, Assistant Chief London. But we came to a meeting that we will continue to see the increase in support and provide Mr. Bush with whatever support he may need as well in terms of using our services as an opportunity as a diversion approach. And also we have seen constant referrals from a BSO out in Deerfield as it relates to some of the work we're doing. And so we're happy about that relationship, how it's going, and we're doing some things in the community together. As many of you know, we have a healing space program, and BSO been partnering up with us to continue to identify families who are in need as part of our partnership. So instead of making an arrest, it's actually about meeting the family in their moment of crisis and try to fill the need that needs to be addressed. Colonel Holmes, did I miss anything?
No, not at all. We feel honored to be able to assist you in addressing those issues within your city and other parts of the county too. The command staff is dedicated to being there, so they're going to be with you all the way through. So don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to ask for assistance. Don't hesitate to contact the command staff should you think or should you require any additional assistance. We have several different units there, and we have units here downtown that step up to the plate each and every day. So if you have any families that are in need of specialized assistance, please don't hesitate.
And I just want to put this in a proper perspective. We appreciate the work that you're doing on the prevention side. The prevention side is oftentimes the most difficult side to work in, because you don't see the fruits of your labor. You don't know, well, you do know you prevented folks from entering into the system, but it's hard to quantify that. But we know that it has a significant impact in reducing the number of children that enter into the juvenile justice system. So continue that good work, Colonel Holmes and Mr. Obel. What you develop in Pompano, hopefully we'll be able to replicate that all throughout our county, and we'll be able to see some tangible returns on preventing children and families from falling into despair and then ultimately into the juvenile and criminal justice system. So keep up that good work. All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just so for the record, we will circle back with Assistant Chief London when we get a chance. So get on both our schedules.
And that's the key behind this, is to first create it in one area and then replicate it. So Chief London, we're looking forward to seeing a similar type of prevention approach in Fort Lauderdale. And then we'll go from city to city, and hopefully it'll be covering the entirety of Broward County. It doesn't only have to be with Mr. Obel's group. It can be with any group that's doing good work, prevent children and families from coming into contact with the system. But if he has created a model that works, copy and paste. That's what we need to do all throughout Florida, all throughout Broward. Any other input or feedback on the alternative prevention work group? Hearing none, we're going to move on in the agenda to legislative highlights.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Obel. Sir, yes, sir.
No, I was just saying thank you.
No, we appreciate you. Mrs. Secretary, any highlights in the legislative process that you want to bring to our attention?
I don't have any highlights. I got some lowlights, but some bad stuff happened on for kids, and we step back when it comes to the employment issues, and how, as I said, the school will be prevented from doing some of the preventative programs that they want to do. Their legal is digesting it as we speak, and I think Mr. Bush will have if you can share the how this board will change effective July 1.
That's what I wanted to hear about. DJJ's position on the new legislation.
Yeah, I want to hear the same thing. I have no idea. So once I get word, I guess, how this will work, I, definitely can share. But as of right now, I have no clue.
So the long and short of it is the structure of the board will change. The size has been reduced. If you are coming from the community, first of all, the chair will no longer be Judge Holmes effective July 1. It will be Mr. Bush. Mr. Bush will determine those a few people from the community. I believe there are at least 3 slots that folk are to ask Mr. Bush, who will be the chair, for permission to serve in the capacity that they bring to the table. The rest of the statutory appointments will pretty much remain the same. I don't know that the judge will actually be continuing, because I don't know that is something that she wants to do going forward. I'm almost positive that she will not. There's no, we should, I don't think she had any problem with letting Mr. Bush get his ducks in a row and figure out who he wants to have. As you know, she comes from the community, and where we were allowed to, have always been allowed since I've been on the board, to elect our own chair. That is no longer the case. And so it's gone from community controlled to DJJ controlled. And so I would assume once the word has been given, and there used to be a form, I'm assuming that there will be another form that you will reach out to Mr. Bush and ask for one of the positions is there. I will send out the statute. It was 1425 as it was signed and completed. For those that went up to the, I think it was a chairs meeting maybe last year, many of the things that were discussed by the secretary of DJJ has come into fruition. So basically the board, as we know it, as it relates to the community, will no longer be that. As I will send out was the original, there was a House version, there was a Senate version, and it flew under the radar. Most people missed it, who would have had some input, but at this point, it is what it is, and it'll be, the community folk will be outside, and those who are in the offices that you all are in will be inside, and it will certainly affect from the DJJ standpoint of how this is to work, and the community will have to go on its own. It even speaks to about community leaders got scratched out and that sort of thing. So I will send it to you all, and you can then make your own determination as to how that's going to be. There was a revised social media piece that happened. Also, oh, and by the way, the bill 1425, I believe, also speaks to DJJ and its own education curriculum that's going to be there. So a lot of changes coming.
Madam Secretary, can I interject right here so we can digest this, because this is a big one. All righty then. So let's put this in perspective. July 1st. Chief Bush, you're going to be chair of the advisory board. I don't even know it's going to maintain the same name as an advisory board, because it's, I guess, DJJ.
I think I know that they changed. I know the civil citation also changed. What's the new name? Yes, Mr. Bush. civil delinquency or something. There's been a lot of changes that happen to be made. So what I'll do is send it out so you can get a chance to read through the document yourself. But there are some significant changes. And
So let's ask some questions of Chief Bush, who is going to be our chair by the middle of the year. You know, this board has created a certain agenda of reporting from various different stakeholders through the norms of how we've operated. And with that, those norms, we have created some benchmarks, particularly civil citation benchmarks to monitor missed opportunities. We've created data work groups that look at trends of arrests throughout this community. We have school disciplinary reports to see how the school system is interfacing with the juvenile justice system. You know, I know it's premature, but have you given any thought to what types of things you're going to keep in place and what you're going to replace, modify, or change moving forward with how you're going to look at issues for this community?
I really haven't given a whole lot of thought, Mr. Chair. I know, I would love to address those issues that are plaguing our county. You know, I know every circuit, every county has different issues and things that happen. So whatever those trends are that are happening here, I would assume that those will we still would be looking at those as well. So not sure how, like I said, not sure how it's going to look. Once I get instructions, on what I need to do and how it needs to go forward, then I can share that.
So there is no firm commitment that we're going to continue to, at least as a body, review civil citations or missed opportunities.
Like I said, I can't even answer that question. I have no idea at this time. I don't.
So given that, and I know this is new and I'm putting you on the spot, but that's unfortunately the responsibility of leadership to be on the spot sometimes.
Yeah, I understand that.
And this is important to this community. We've put a lot of effort of our time and our energies into this advisory board, and I think for the total of the years have moved our juvenile justice system in a positive direction, evidenced by the reduction in juvenile arrests and processing through the juvenile system. We want to continue to have some oversight over those areas that we have identified as important for this community. I would encourage you, since I'm now the co-chair and I'm acting chair today, I'm encouraging you as an incoming chair to continue some of the consistency that we've had through the course of, I don't know, how many years has it been, Madam Secretary? 10, 15 years? It's been a long time. Continue some of the consistency that this board has put in place for juvenile justice and department over the course of years. I know as a chair, you have the authority to run the meeting however you so choose, to identify the topics that you want to address and set the agenda. But so we can have this conversation in a public fashion and there'll be some public record of it. This particular chair is encouraging the next incoming chair to continue some continuity of consistency of the issues that we've addressed throughout the years. I know that you have folks that you answer to. I mean, they may may give you some direction on how these meetings will continue with the change of the statute. But I'm strongly encouraging you from one chair to another that there has been some progress made. And it's because we look at the same issue over a course of time and we're able to see trends and then put some efforts behind addressing those trends. let's continue to have for Broward County that level of consistency in the future is coming. Any other input on that issue? Any other members want to voice their position on how this board is going to look effective July 1st?
I would just, Mr. Chair, if I may, to encourage Mr. Bush to, when you're talking about the makeup, ask the folk that you don't have any control over, such as, the sheriff department and the public defender, that if you just give anybody, if sheriff department decide to send you deputy friendly and he has no juice or no authority and no say so, then you really haven't accomplished anybody. If the chief over in Fort Lauderdale decides to give you, just somebody just to say that you have somebody, then you don't have any, all you're doing is checking off a box that encouraged to send senior leadership that have the authority to make a decision on behalf of the agency. When we got Colonel Holmes assigned, the sheriff assured that he would have the authority to make decisions on behalf of the agency, and whether he liked it or not, number one, he would deal directly with Colonel Holmes as to whatever happened or whatnot, but he would stand by the decision and work it from there. So he doesn't have to be fearful of making a decision on behalf of the agency. So that's the difference of what was happening when we came to this board and where we are now. That's my suggestion. Thanks.
Any other suggestions? Colonel Holmes, Chief London, Gloria Mushala. They're all wishing you well wishes, Chief Bush.
Well, I'm not gonna put Chief Bush on the spot. I agree with him. He doesn't know what his marching orders are, if there are any at all, what his parameters are. He's got to keep a roof over his head. I'll wait to hear what this is supposed to look like. I'm curious to see it as well. It sounds like Chief Bush doesn't know either. So when we get some clarity, then we'll know what we can expect from all of us as stakeholders under the guise of DJJ's new iteration of this board.
Colonel Holmes, Chief London.
Yes, Chief Bush, if I could just ask that you please articulate the importance of us working together to the people up north. I think over at the Jack, I think we do a good job. There's always areas for room for improvement. However, I think we do a good job working together. And I think that it's important that they know that, and that people don't come and try to fix something that's not broken. We can always improve things, but people come up with these wild ideas and new innovative ways to do things. And a lot of times they can destroy things and they can send things the opposite direction. We're here for improvement, and we're here to work with you and to work on this civil citation program is very instrumental into saving our youth. And they need to understand that up north, that we take it seriously down here, and that we in law enforcement, especially, I know Assistant Chief London and the people here at the Sheriff's Office, we're in it. We're in it 100%.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you making that comment, because it's all about the work that we do, not just meeting, but putting action to what we speak. So I do appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
Let me just say that this saddens me a bit, not having anything to do with Chief Bush, but we have come a long way in those 10 or 12 or 15 years that some of us been together, consistently working for this community. And when you have the chair being an employee of DJJ, I think we lose enforcement. I know we're advisory, but sometimes you can make advisory that stick. I don't see where we have that push, or will have that push that we now have. And that's got nothing to do with Mr. Bush or anybody else out there. As one person used to always say, I'm not talking about anybody. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about.
We appreciate that, Mr. Walters. Chief London?
I think once we get the document in hand and can assess what the requirements are, we'll all be in a better position to be able to support Chief Bush.
Judge Rabola?
I got nothing.
Chief Bush?
Well, I appreciate everybody, you know, in the supporting me and the department in this. Like I say, you know, like Assistant Chief London said, I mean, until and Ms. Michelle said, until we get that document in hand, and we really doesn't know what it looks like. So once we get that in hand, once we can filter out what needs to be filtered and you know, and put those things back in perspective, you know, it's just right now it's just like we're in a holding spot. So I'm anxious to see what it looks like. And I say once I do get that information, I will definitely, you know, if I can share that with you also.
Well, we have until July 1st. You are well respected in this community, Chief Bush. So we will try to make this transition to your new leadership and what this board will look like in the future as seamless as possible. We'll hope to be continuing doing the good work for the kids in Broward County, and whatever iteration it has, I hope it still addresses these fundamental areas that we've identified that are critical to our kids in Broward County. So without knowing what direction you're going to get or how this thing is going to look, what we'll do is, I think every meeting until you take over, we'll just ask you for a little report on how the transition is going and what the vision is going to look like moving forward. Luckily, we have some time to do that, and that hopefully will make your transition a little bit more smoother, and it will give us some insight into what we should be prepared for. All righty? So with that being said, any other legislative updates, Madam Secretary?
What we'll do is we will send out the updated as it's being signed, different bills. I know that there were several that are waiting for signatures and we haven't gotten word that have been signed. We can send those out. In particular, I know that the social media one was a biggie, and it was a huge fight on that. I know that the employment, the releases on when kids can work was a really big deal. The changes to civil citation, and what can and can't be, who can and can't have programs. The state attorney's office has to is going to have to refresh his civil citation. I think it's called delinquency programs now. There's going to be there's a role for Mr. Weeks' office, as well as it goes on. So there's a lot of things that will affect our community. And the youth in our community as well. So as it gets signed down, our lobbyist usually just sends us a summary of the final copy. The different iterations have been forever changing. So the final version with the governor's signature and the effective dates, we'll just continue to send out. I'll send out this one that we've been talking about this board. I'm doing that as we speak to the board members.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Chief London or Colonel Holmes, and you know, my memory escapes me, so I apologize. Do we know what is the status of the bill that removed the civilian oversight for law enforcement? Did that ever make it pass? Does anyone know?
It did.
So it's waiting for signature?
But it's what ended up the final version is there can still be a board. You can, it's going to be up to the individuals to get videos and that sort of thing. They want it to, you can review policies and procedures, not so much on the practice. which was going to be the difference there. I did speak to the senator, and that was included, but we will get the final language. To my knowledge, it was not signed as of yet, but as soon as we get that. But yes, it was, well, obviously, since they have control, those who support it was going to, but it has passed, and with very little changes to it.
All righty, so there's a number of bills that we're waiting for signature from the governor. Then I guess we'll have an effective date of either July 1st or October 1st, and then we'll address those bills as they come up. We appreciate the highlights, Madam Secretary. With that being said, I think we've addressed all the items on the agenda, and I'm now going to open it for any good of the order.
Do we have the detention data?
Oh, that's what I was gonna do. Yes. Let's do our little round robin on detention center. Colonel Holmes.
All right, at our juvenile center, which is our Paul Ryan Center, where our juveniles are housed. For the month of February, we had 11 males, 0 females. For the month of February, we had no disciplinary reports and we had no incident reports. So that's a good thing.
I appreciate you for adding that additional piece of information. That's very insightful to know whether there was any disciplinary incident reports within the facility in that time frame.
Yeah, and during the month of February, Sheriff Tony and the new command staff, we have the new command staff over in Department of Detention. They conducted a tour of the facility. So the sheriff had a chance to go into the juvenile section and speak to the juveniles as well. So
yeah, I saw that.
Yep. Okay.
Chief Bush, any update on the detention center?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As of yesterday, March 12th, we had a total of 53 youth in detention. There were 39 Black males, 7 Black females, 5 white females, and 5 white males and 2 white females. Out of those 53, 5 were from another county that we were holding from another county. Those numbers were 2 Blacks, 1 white males, 1 Black female, and 1 white female. And they are still doing.
Go ahead, sir. I apologize.
And they are still doing renovations over at the detention center. They're on the second of the 4 modules. That should be completed by tomorrow, and they will be working. They were starting on the third module next week.
Do you have any similar reporting of any incident or other reports that may have occurred during the time?
As far as when I spoke with the major, there was no other major incidents that happened at the detention. As you know, we talked earlier that Major Rosello has resigned as of last Friday. They do have a new major in place. Her name is Shannon Grant, who came in, so she will be taking over as the major for Broward Detention.
Do you know what circuit she came from?
She came from circuit. She's been around a while, so she was in several detention centers. She came from Miami-Dade, Circuit 11, and as of recently, she was the major for Circuit 16 detention, which is the key. So she's now back in.
Was she in Broward County before? Previously,
She was in Broward County before. Yes.
Is there any without getting ahead of yourself, and I know you're not aware, but I just got to ask this question. Is there any time frame on finding a permanent superintendent?
I'm not sure. I think she will end up being the permanent one, but I don't want to say that is for sure. But she is the one there for now. So
without getting into the details, Mr. Rosello didn't leave under any like black cloud or anything like that.
No, definitely not.
All righty. So any questions from the members on this particular point? I saw your hand, Mrs. Brown. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you talked about the changes to the Circuit Advisory Board, I read everything, and I just thought it was very interesting. And it was just a comment how the word diversity, the language diversity was used So you know, that just kind of struck me because of the whole DEI and how we shouldn't discuss diversity. But I saw that used throughout that, and I thought that was very interesting. So it was more of a comment.
So it was appropriate to have an emphasis on diversity for the board. Is that your comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It was just so interesting to me as I read about the changes
But not diversity for our universities? Oh,
I don't want to get into anything
I just
politically.
listen.
I just thought that was very interesting. And when we were discussing it, I just couldn't hold back. So that was just a
Putting
comment.
things together because I think I saw one of our major universities had a big write-up in the paper about terminating their entire diversity, equity, and inclusion staff, if my memory serves me correct. I think that was last
You
week.
did.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madam. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brown, for that. And sometimes we have to point these things out because you can speak out of both sides of your mouth sometimes. And you need to be consistent throughout this state. So I appreciate that anecdotal piece of information, Ms. Brown. All righty. Back to Chief London in the reports. Oh, is it 0? You don't have any juveniles? I know you don't. All righty. So just a wrap up on the detention center. We have new leadership at our detention center. Mr. Rosello, who has been there for some many years, has moved on to another employee. We have an interim superintendent who has served in other detention centers as a major. She has previously been in Broward County. She's back in Broward County as an interim. And we do not have a time frame on when we will have a permanent superintendent put in place. But she does have some ties to the South Florida community. Will she be joining us moving forward in our advisory boards, at least until July 1st?
That's one question I got to ask her.
Well, we strongly encourage you to
Yeah.
encourage her to join us in these meetings. I think it's very helpful to have representatives from the Department of Probation and the Department of Detention to give us insight into the challenge you may be having, and the solutions that be put in place in your respective areas. So we'll reach out to encourage her, and we'll also reach out to introduce ourselves. Madam Secretary.
We need to please be reminded that the immediate past superintendent would have joined us if he could have.
I know, that's why I'm encouraging.
I want to say that, so if she doesn't join, doesn't necessarily mean that she doesn't want to. It means that there may be something or someone preventing her from doing so.
I encourage all the members of this board to reach out to all the other stakeholders, including the detention interim superintendent, and encourage her to participate in this board and also develop a relationship with the detention centers to offer any solutions or help for the challenge that they may be having over there. I agree with you, Madam Secretary. Given that being said, we have met our agenda items. I'm opening it up for any good of the order. Just raise your hand or just jump right in. Come on, Colonel Holmes, there has to be an event going on at BSO that you want to tell us about coming up.
Well, I mean, did I miss anything substantial with my technical difficulties for the first
No.
20 minutes?
No.
No? Okay. I just wanted to, in case, something was asked of BSO, I apologize for that. But it appears I got it fixed, so I'm good to go.
Any other good of the order? I have one thing that's good for the order. We have a partnership with Broward Health where we they have provided a community health van that is made available at the courthouse every Tuesday from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That health van is available to all members of the public and employees within the courthouse. So all of your detention folks, all of your folks from BSO are welcome to access that van. Colonel Holmes, all of your officers from Fort Lauderdale, Chief London are open to access that. Judge Robolo, all of your staff, and all the other judges and all the other folks that work in the courthouse are welcome to access it. We're encouraging the community to utilize this. We recognize there are some gaps in this community for folks that are underserved to access healthcare, and we've been getting a very, very strong response from, without any advertisement, just folks just accessing and getting linked back into the healthcare facility. So with that being said, I'm encouraging all of you to spread the word about that. If you have people that are visiting the courthouse, Chief Bush, any of your probationers or any of the kids or their family members, and they haven't, had a high blood pressure screening or some other type of screening or even a flu shot, if they're going to be in the courthouse anyway, this is an opportunity for them to access those systems. So I wanted to put that out there for everyone, including all those folks that are online that are watching it. Ms. Brown.
I just want to, when you brought that up, I thought about something. Court administration just entered a partnership with 0 to 3, and there were some federal funds that were released. And we have what's known as the Medicaid Unwinding Project, where we're going to be able, people who do not have access to health insurance, we're going to have Coast to Coast Legal Aid, Broward 211, ChildNet, and they're going to be here in the courthouse available to help people sign up for insurance and get them access to insurance. So we're having our kickoff meeting on Monday, the 18th, and afterwards we're going to be sending out some flyers, and we'll make sure that your office and everyone receives this information.
That's a great program, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Could you please make sure that we get a copy of that flyer so we can distribute it to our clients and make sure that John James is involved in that process as well?
Absolutely.
I saw Chief London, you raised your hand really quickly for good of the order. No?
No, I did not.
All that for that. Anyone else have anything they would like to add? Any programs that you would like to advertise? With none being heard, can I have a motion to adjourn? Or am I hearing a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
No needing a second on that. Everyone, you have a great rest of the day. Keep up the good work. I'll see you all again next month. And for those folks in the community, know that we're working very hard to address those things that are affecting our children in Broward County. With that being said, good day, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.